Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing, and today we're going to be trying a new format. I've got a green screen behind me, and I've got in front of me, I got my laptop, and I've already got a video on there of me casting in the snow under less than ideal conditions. So we're going to actually go around and sort of explore that video, we'll analyze it, and let me know what you think of it if this format works for you. We have a little bit of fun, but they got to do something different once in a while. So let's get going and looking at the video. So right now I'm in front of a brick wall. This is in our schoolyard. This is ideal for seeing the line, seeing the path of the line, seeing the path of the rod. Anything that's dark and you're in the light will work as well. So for example, if you had a tree line that's in shadow, but you're in sunlight, that'll work just fine. The line will show quite well against the backdrop. So in this case, I'm just using a brick wall. I was using an orange line so it shows against the snow, but not so well against the brick wall. Maybe I should have gone with a blue line. And the other thing about casting when you're out trying these things is it's not just an opportunity to look at your casting, it's also an opportunity to examine tackle. So I'm going to start off this casting with a casting problem caused by tackle. And what I've got here is an underweight line. The rod is a 7 weight and the line is a 6/7. And it works up to a point, but it's not great. It doesn't load the rod really deeply. The line has a very long front taper. It's 19 foot long. And I chose this line simply because it was orange. It's really old. It's got to be 10 to 15 years old. The leader's way too long. I think it's something like 11 foot. And the piece of yarn I'm using is huge. So it combines to make things difficult, and it shows up in this video. As we get to this point here, I'll back up. That's the beauty. I can back up. You can see that the line is sagging. There's no energy. The rod is barely loaded. And that's simply because of the conditions I've just described. The big problem with the long leader and the big yarn is I had to wait for that yarn to roll out. And it was very slow rolling out because the leader was having trouble turning it over. And that weak, wimpy front taper wasn't delivering much energy. So right off the bat, we can see some problems caused by the tackle. Okay, but my loop shape looks pretty good despite that. We'll excuse the snow. And let's see if I can freeze on the loop. And now I'm going to go into bad casting technique. And you can see those big sloppy over loops. You see I've gone into slow-mo here and I've stopped it. Look at that ugly, ugly loop. And that's caused by me using my wrist, okay? And there's not much energy in the cast. The turnover was horrible. So this is a perfect example of how you can see what you're doing wrong. And you can see my wrist going like this the whole time. Okay, a few more sloppy ones. And now we're going to get into another problem in a moment. Here we go. I've got a low rod stopping position. And my fly is actually, at that point, my fly has hit the snow. And that's a very common thing we see with beginners when we're teaching beginners. When we get out in the river, we can see their fly hitting the water behind them, a little splat. And they're casting a dry fly, but now it's a wet fly. So that's, again, the wrist and combined with a low stopping point, and you end up with that problem. Okay, now we're back to nice loops. Now we're going to change position. And this is a bad camera angle. A lot of people would choose this angle because there's very little risk of you hitting the camera with your line. But you can't see the arm properly, plus I'm too close to the camera. So I'm going to move a little bit further away. Now you can see my arm motion. You can see what my wrist is doing. And I can use slow-mo and I'll put in some bad casting. Here's my using the wrist. And you see that rod is going almost 180 degrees in that arc. Very common problem with people who are learning to cast. So you can see what's happening with your wrist. Now I'm going to get my arm moving in a straight line. My hand is moving in a straight line at this point. And now I'm going to see the power snap at the end. You can see that I've actually put a little snap of the wrist into it. Now I've got better casting technique, thumbs on top, hand travels in a straight line, and the rod tip travels in a straight line. This is called good tracking. The line is going dead straight and it's essential for accuracy. If you don't have good tracking, things go wrong. Now I've got bad tracking. So, whoops, let's back up a little bit. See how that rod tip has gone behind my head? This is a great way to hit yourself in the back of the head with a fly. You go like this, and you put the rod tip behind you. This is bad tracking. And as you see as I come forward, that loop of line, you barely see it against the outline of the tree. That's going to embed the fly right here if I'm not careful. So we'll continue. Now I see my wrist is arcing the line, and my line is no longer straight behind me. You can see where the fluffy is, just above my head. You see that red dot. You see it's basically going over my head, which is not a good thing. And the rod tip is a wobbly path, not good at all. So we're slow motion. Now I'm rolling my wrist to the outside and doing sort of a sidearm cast. And you can see if I stop it right here, you see the line has gone out to the side. And so I've got almost a flat, level loop. And what happens here is from this point, now I'm just going to go over, and as I come up and turn, I'm putting a half twist into the line. So a lot of people who have problems with their lines getting twist in them, it's because of this motion. And that's what's doing it. So with this videotaping of our casting, just using an iPhone, nothing wrong with it at all. I'm just using an iPhone and that stand that I showed in the previous video. And that's all I'm doing. This is the simplest thing, just an iPhone and a stand. We can get decent footage. I mean, it's not fantastic, it's not great, but it does the job for us to be able to analyze what we're going to do. So the things to keep in mind when you're out there casting is you want to make sure that you've got a camera or an iPhone that is going to be solidly mounted. You want to be able to change position so you can get different angles, different looks. You want to move back and move close. You want to examine your wrist, get in tight. If you want to see what the line is doing, move back. If you can use some kind of background that highlights the line, great. Pick a line color that works with the background. As an example here, I used an orange line which worked against the snow, but doesn't work against that brick background. So I would have been better off with bright blue against that background. And also keep in mind that we don't just use it for casting, we can use it for analyzing equipment as well. When we're casting a line for the first time and we're wondering if it's working on the rod, yeah, we can go by feel, but if we videotape it, we can see what it's doing as well behind us. And we see what's happening with that back cast and know if that line is really loading the rod or not. So get out there with your iPhone and don't forget that little stand and go for it. Cheers.